The boat you see represents an 1860s steam launch.
You see, Daddy?
And they're going to land. The first man out of the boat is one of the sailors who will anchor the boat, and then come the Marines to try to make sure the perimeter is safe for the sailor work party to come ashore and actually do the work of destroying the iron pots and the other parts of the salt works that are here. So the U.S. Marines, you see, are the first ones to go ashore. Now the Navy's backing up the boat, and they'll go get the work party that's still out at the ship. And the Marines, in the meantime, are going to go ashore. Now, over here on our left, of course, are the people who are working in the salt works, who are mostly civilians. And they are looking curiously what's going on. A couple of local militia from St. Andrews have come down to try to discourage U.S. naval forces from coming ashore and doing anything else. Now the militia is telling the ladies to go ahead and take what they can and get out, because it looks like the U.S. Navy is going to successfully take this thing. One of the big early raids here at St. Andrews took place in November of 1862, when 5 boats loaded with 60 Marines and a work party of sailors headed to St. Andrews Bay and destroyed salt works located around the bay. They did, at that time, wherever they landed, I'm not sure where this one was, but wherever they landed in this bay, it was so shallow that the sailors had to wade through 200 feet of water to get to the shore. And one of the quotes from the commander who wrote of that salt raid said that they had to render everything completely unfit for future use. So we had to knock down all the brickwork to destroy the salt already made, to knock in the heads and set fire to barrels, boxes, and everything that would hold salt, to burn the sheds and houses in which it was stowed, and to disable and burn up the wagons that we found loaded with the salt. In December of '63, another big raid happened here in St. Andrews Sound. And of course, there were rebel troops all over the place here still at the time, and so the plan of the naval officer in charge was to attack the headquarters of rebel troops at St. Andrews. But as they approached the town early in the morning, the skipper reported seeing 2 cavalry officers and many infantrymen. The local forces fled the area after the second shot from the ship's guns were fired. Now you got to remember that the naval artillery in those days were firing rounds that are 9 inches around, and they had explosive rounds, they had solid shot, they had all different kinds of ammunition, but when you're talking about a bullet that big, it will leave a mark, and so they left. Brown then fired a 3rd shot at a house on the southeast end of town, which sparked a blaze. The wind helped spread the fire to the rest of the structures. I think I've heard this tune just as early as yesterday. The wind spread the fire to the rest of the structures in the small town, causing all 32 of them to burn in short order. They were a little more historical than we intended to be yesterday. The total destruction included 27 buildings, 22 large steam boilers, 300 kettles, along with 2,000 bushels of salt, supplies of cornmeal, bacon, syrup, and other items totaling $500,000. Well, on that particular raid, they actually went up and down the bay here, and for 7 miles, and destroyed 198 privately owned salt works consisting of a couple of boilers and about 10 kettles each, along with a large quantity of salt. By the time they got done, 507 kettles were dug up, because a lot of these were buried by the locals, and then the sailors had to go try to find where they buried them. And actually, they were aided by by slaves who would run away at the sight of the U.S. Navy to try to join with them. They were called contrabands. That was the name that was given to runaway slaves who went to join the U.S. forces. And they would say, I saw them bury that salt boiler over here, and so that helped them dig them up. But the total that they burned in that few weeks that the U.S. Navy was running up and down here in December of '63 was 300 buildings burned, along with 27 wagons and carts and five flatboats. One of the guys who was here said that he felt that the destruction of the salt industry in St. Andrews Bay would be, quote, a greater blow and more severely felt than the falling of Charleston. The ship captain there said that he thought that the raids of the 15th actually resulted in 380 salt works destroyed, 1,000 kettles, a large number of steam boilers, 500 buildings, and other property totaling an estimated $3,700,000. And that was December of 1863. All right, now we have our work crew of sailors that are coming towards the beach. Now the sailors will come ashore and actually do the work of destroying the salt works, which we see some boilers and pots and stuff over here that were used by this particular group. Now, just a word about the Marines you see in front of you. You should notice that their uniforms are not incredibly dissimilar from modern Marine Corps uniforms you see today. They have a blue coat and white pants and a blue hat. They wear white cross belts. Of course, Marines today with their dress uniforms will just wear the white waist belt. But the coat has a red trim on it. Very similar theme to the uniforms we see today. Now the Navy work crew is approaching, and they're going to be wary too. They never know when somebody's going to pop up. A couple of times here, even in St. Andrews Bay, some Navy guys came ashore to look for water, and they were carrying water barrels, and they were ambushed by Confederate troops, and several were killed. And we did an event here a few years ago to honor and remember that particular activity. Joining us today are Sea Cadets who are here armed with pikes, which is a Civil War naval weapon. The pike is an 8-foot pole with a metal spike on the end, and it is an actual weapon used on board ship generally. And the other Navy guys are going to come aboard with revolvers and some cutlasses, which is what they would use when needed. But their mission today is to go up and actually destroy the salt works. And they know that the Marines are out in front of them to guard the perimeter, and we're going to use our lads from our Sea Cadets today, who we've drafted into the service to help us demonstrate the destruction of salt works. Generally, the pikes that you see those lads carrying are used on shipboard, and the idea, of course, is that if the guys from the other team are trying to come up and capture your ship, get on your ship, if you've got a big pokey thing like that, you can generally discourage them from that kind of behavior. Okay, the salt works have been turned over, and the one pot that's right in front of us here, there's been a charge set under it. I wouldn't be a bit surprised by what it explodes here in just a couple minutes.
Okay. Oh, cool, I got it.
A little destruction is always fun, you know. All right, now the sailors are getting back in the boat, and the Marines will retire to the beach. And we will conclude our demonstration in just a minute. As soon as it's over, you're welcome to come forward and ask our reenactors helping us with this demonstration today any questions that you may have. Take a closer look at their equipment, and we'll leave the boat here as well. You can take a look at it. Some of you may notice that the chevrons on our Marines are, if you will, upside down. Unlike the Army the Marines wore their chevrons point side up, and they're the big 10-inch stripes that we see in the Civil War. On Army folks as well. The colors are exactly the same as we see Marines today, with that golden yellow and a red backing. There's a great picture there of our sailors in their launch.
Because I had the super zoom on, it didn't test it.
Now it's